we're going to tie the flat wire shrimp. This is a shrimp that I was first shown by Dave Wiltshire. It's a great way of using flat lead to create the profile that you're looking for and the weight that you need. Very simple to tie and really quite effective, particularly in clear water short streams or spring creeks or limestone casts, so very clear rivers where there's lots of shrimp about. So to begin with, I've got the Partridge K5AY, which is a heavier wire grub hook. The reason I use the heavier wire hook for this fly is because of the way we're stacking the flat wire. I prefer the broader, thicker wire shank in order to lay my base down. Thread-wise, as with many of my patterns, we've got the 18.0 Nano silk by Semperfli, this time in white. Really the reason for white is the colour of the thread isn't as important. It really is just doing a job for us. And the Nano silk works brilliantly because we can lay it flat, but also being strong, it will help us cut the wire. You'll see that later on in the fly. So I started very close to the eye. This is unusual in a lot of my flies, in that normally I'd start back from the eye of the hook, but I'm looking to give myself as much room as possible. And now I'm getting some flat lead wire. Usually it comes in strips of about 5 or 6 inches long. This one is made by Hends, and this is 0.3 millimeters thick, and it's perfect for stacking and building up the profile we're looking for. Obviously with our curved hook here, we've already got the fade shrimp profile, but what I'm going to look to do now is lay that flat wire on top of the shank, and using my thread, I'm just going to wind down and secure it to the shank of the hook there. When I get to the end, apply a little bit more pressure and you'll see that Nano silk will just cut straight through the wire. Then I'll work my thread back forward again, take my flat wire again, this time a little bit back from the first one, and I'll place more turns on top. And as with the front, now with the back, a little bit short of the last one, place a bit more pressure on the thread and then open turns back to the front. Depending on how heavy and what profile you want will depend on how many layers you put on. Another one, and I'm just going to place one more small one. Cutting down. There we go. Now I'm going to use my thread work to lock all of that in place, and you'll now see quite a pronounced hump shape there. Because we've made it such a aggressive forward taper, I just rock the hook back a little bit so the thread's not sliding off. And to help hold everything in place, this is a good time, and you don't see me use it too often, but a good time to add just a spot of super glue. And all we're looking to do is stop that rotating around the shank of the hook. Get that in early. We can keep tying the fly whilst that glue sets there. So take your thread now to the back of the hook, put a few extra turns in just to create the thread base, and we're now going to get our shrimp back material. Here I'm using the Semperfli ultra thin skin in clear. This is perfect for the natural shrimp bats. It's excellent because of its thinness. I know it's in the name, but it stops you getting that bulky shrimp bat that you can get with some of the rubber materials. It's got a nice bit of stretch, and it's more of an opaque than a complete clear, so it does add a little bit to the back. So you'll see that I've cut a point shape in there. That's to help tie it in at the back, whereas if we're trying to tie in just a square bit, you can find that the back of the fly gets quite messy. So all I do is on my side I'll place it side on, so not the way that I want, but with the thread turn I know that that's going to rotate everything in place and trap down the point of that nymph back, and then work my thread forward. Now we're going to use a fantastic material that's hare's ear. So for this I prefer to actually use my own hare's ear that I picked rather than a made one. So here I've got my hare's mask, and to get the fur that we need, we're literally removing it from this section of the ear, and to do so you can just pinch with your thumb and forefinger and rip the fur out. Get yourself a handy container and do a number of tears off the ear to make sure you've got a good stash. Once you do it, you'll end up with a good fly selection, and we'll place that in, don't know if we can see here, in the palm of my hand, and use my forefinger on my other hand just to move in a circular motion to mix all those fibres together and fold them back in, and then you'll get a nice open blend of fur and a good mix of underfur and guard hairs, which is excellent for giving you that leggy profile that we really want for shrimp materials. With the Nano silk and other GSP threads, when tying with naturals like hare's ear, it does help to put a wax on. This is the Semperfli GSP wax. It is black, so it will colour the thread, but actually that's not a worry at this point, because we're looking, it will be under the dubbing. So cover that nicely, and the great thing is you'll end up with a little bit on your hands, which makes your dubbing hugely a lot easier. And we'll take a nice selection and dub. We want it to be fairly uniform as it goes down, because we've created a lot of the shape of the fly with the wire work. And the great thing with using the wax is, unlike that, is both the dubbing holds, and you find that the thread doesn't slide off the wire at any point. You'll find with any shrimp patterns that they're really quite dubbing hungry flies, so do be prepared to use a lot of dubbing whenever you're tying full shrimp patterns. But you can see those wonderful guard heads being really spiky and going off in all directions, and that's why we've got the nymph skin. So a normal hare's ear wouldn't have a back on it at all, so you would leave those guard hairs firing off in all directions, whereas because we're replicating a fly whose legs point downwards, we really are looking just to have use that skin to control everything and make it into the natural shape of the fly. This should see us to the end of the fly. You'll notice that I haven't tied in a rib material, and only one of the flies tonight will actually use a rib material, and it's just a way that I've started tying my flies, particularly my shrimps, that I find speeds up the tying process. It certainly doesn't lose its effectiveness. So here we are. Before I bring the back forward, I actually coach some of those fibres down. You'll see it's already looking very, very shrimp-like. Now we can work by bringing our back forward, and I'm going to take my thread and put a turn below the back, just one turn. That means the reason I do that is if I try and make the first turn on the back, sometimes you can cause the back to twist, whereas I want my first turn to be slightly further forward, and it will always slip a little bit, so you can release the back. You can even hold it with your finger if you need to, and place the second turn. The great way with doing the back like this is you're in complete control all the time. You can release this material while you adjust something, or make sure that it's straight on the back before placing your next turn. Each segment looks just to expand and get a little bit bigger as you work your way towards the middle of the fly. And we're just getting towards it. Once we've done the middle segment, we'll start to look to tighten the segments back up again. And the last section, we'll do several turns, pull the back backwards, and put a number of turns in front. It's where the Nano silk does help, because you can place more turns. Before I take any pressure off that, I'll just rock the hook back even further in the vise. That will just offer you a bit more security at this section when you're cutting the back out. The other thing you can do if you're really nervous, but I don't like to, just in case anything needs changing, is actually do a whip finish before you cut the back out. And now we're going to tidy all of this up with thread work. Make sure all the lengths are nicely pointing down and in with the whip finish tool. Doesn't matter if you trap too many fibres forward, because some of the legs of the shrimp do actually face forward. So it should look rough and ready for the river. Go in with your scissors, open a V shape and just push against the thread. Then you're not cutting any of these fibres. And there you have it. A very simple and heavy shrimp pattern that's perfect for clear water environments. You can adjust the colour. You might find that some of your rivers you're fishing, if you take a bug sample, some of your shrimp may have a little bit of olive in it. They may have, in Bosnia we found them, they had quite a bit of orange just naturally in there, not even the hemoglobin spot. Or you'll find that fish hone in on a hot spot. I tend to add a hot spot in the middle of the fly around here, and I'll do it one segment wide, and I usually go up for a hot orange, but if you're targeting grayling you might want to go for a pink, or you can add in a sort of UV purpley colour. So there are ways of adapting this fly to use in different parts of the world and for different species. And there you have it, the flat wire shrimp, a great fly.